So today we're going to talk about the gut. We talked a little bit about the liver yesterday. I got a bunch of good questions for that. We're going to do Friday. If you have questions, send them to questions@chalmerswellness.com, and we'll go through those. So a lot of people talk about the gut, which is good. It's important. The gut's super duper important. One of the things everybody needs to understand, and this goes back to fat loss, this goes back to energy function, this goes to everything. This is one of the big problems with calories in, calories out as well. What you put in your mouth doesn't go in your body. So from your mouth to your rectum is technically outside of your body. Things have to be absorbed through your gut into your body for them to count. So that's one of the major issues we get into with the diet type of stuff is, there's a lot of things you can do to change how fast you absorb things. So like when we talk about glycemic index of carbohydrates, one of the things that makes massive change is fiber. So for instance, if you take an orange and you eat an orange, the glycemic index is much lower than if you juice the orange, take all the fiber out of it, and just consume the sugars that way. So there's a big absorption function. Fiber plays a role, protein plays a role, fat plays a role, cinnamon plays a role in absorption function. So that's one of the big things you have to understand. Now, here's the thing. Your liver and your kidneys help get all the waste out of the body. Okay, so that's super important. Got to get the waste out. Got to get the waste out first. However, your gut brings everything in. Here's the thing: if your gut's inflamed from food sensitivities, from the 10 million chemicals our government allows the companies to put in our food, if it's inflamed from those chemicals, if it's inflamed because you have a parasitic infection, which most people do, if it's inflamed because you have a yeast overgrowth, which most people do, if it's inflamed because you have, low testosterone, low health in the gut, which most people do, there's going to be a problem. Low probiotic function, you're going to have an issue. So when we look at all of those things, the amount of nutrients we get to absorb is really low. And so that's one of the reasons that people have such bad health issues is because the chemicals that they have to run the body, they're not getting. So that's where a lot of this lies. So that's going to be kind of the path that you walk through. So the first thing you're going to do is, this is the way that we treat it, is the first thing that you want to do is you want to look at killing all the parasites, killing all the yeast, restoring the probiotics, rebuilding the gut. And while you're doing that, you start knocking out food sensitivity issues, and it helps restore the gut function. Now, here's the thing. Stress, psychological, emotional stress, will radically decrease the body's ability for the gut to function. The reason for this is neurologic. So in your brain, you have two different types of nervous system. You have the sympathetic, which is fight, flight, freeze, and you have the parasympathetic, which is resting, digesting. These are opposite sides of the same coin. You can't be a little parasympathetic and a little sympathetic. Your body kind of chooses one to be over the other one. You can be a little bit sympathetic, but that doesn't mean that you're 60% sympathetic and 40% parasympathetic. That's not really how it works. So when you're stressed out for the vast majority of the time, what ends up happening is it shuts off your body's ability to function. So it shuts off hydrochloric acid production in the stomach. It replaces it with lactic butyric acid. That's why we have heartburn. That's why we have GERD. That's why we have ulcers. That's why we have ulcers from H. pylori. H. pylori cannot survive in a pH of less than, I think, 3. So hydrochloric acid is pH of 2. Lactic and butyric acid about 4.5. So if you look at the people who used to have the highest instances of ulcers, you'd find the highest stress jobs. The stockbrokers, the real estate agents, the people who have really high stress. That's where we saw it the most. H. pylori can be killed by HCl. It can be killed oftentimes by oregano and stuff like that. Not always, but HCl is pretty easy. However, if you already have an ulcer, taking hydrochloric acid is going to cause some burning until the stomach can heal itself. So there's ways that we heal the stomach and kill the H. pylori. Things like stomach complexes, different teas, things like that. Allisin's a great way. But it depends on the person. Now, here's the big thing. Medical science knows all this. And so they give you, when you have heartburn, they give you things to block proton pumps, so PPIs or proton pump inhibitors. We know those cause cancer. We've known those would cause cancer since the day they started rolling them out. But again, medicine's job is to make you a little sicker but put you on a drug you have to take every single day. So you pay them a little bit every single day, especially if that problem creates sequela, which just means that if you don't fix this problem, you're going to have 5 more problems down the road. They love that one because they go, all right, we're going to give you this drug so you don't feel this problem. And then when you get this problem, we'll give you a drug for that. And when you get this problem, we'll give you a drug for that. When you have this problem, we'll give you a drug for that. So now you're paying them for 4 or 5 drugs when they could have just taken one supplement and then fixed your physiology. That's how medicine works. The medicine's goal is to, at all costs, not get you better, just make you feel better. Because if they get you better, then they don't get to charge you tomorrow. And if they get you better, they know that you're not going to have the secondary and tertiary problems. Diabetes is a great example. Diabetes is super easy to fix, takes about 3 days. But once you fixed it, there's nothing else that you can charge money for on top of that. So that's why they don't fix it. The other problem we get into with the gut, we see this all the time. Stress does this, antibiotics do this. There's a whole host of things to do it. Parasites do this. It kills off all your probiotics. And when you kill off your probiotics, it radically decreases the amount that your body can produce serotonin. Serotonin is one of those neurotransmitters that makes you feel happy. It makes you feel calm, and it's a mood stabilizer. You'll understand that, a lot of people have been taking SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, for psychiatric function. The problem with that is that, one, they don't work really well. The monoamine theory we knew from the get-go was terrible. Like, the funny thing is about this whole depression thing, we've known since the 60s how to fix depression, anxiety, addiction, and PTSD. The problem is that you can grow enough psilocybin in your garage for a couple $100 to treat yourself forever, and the pharmaceutical companies didn't like that, so they made psilocybin illegal. That's the whole reason psilocybin is illegal. It's not dangerous at all to you if used properly. So, like, don't take a whole bunch and then go drive. That's obviously dumb. But that's one of the few ways it's dangerous. But that's kind of the thing. So you have to understand that the vast majority of your serotonin is made in your gut. So if you have emotional issues, if you have drive issues, if you have any of that type of stuff, the vast majority of that stuff can be fixed by fixing your gut. Now, people go, well, how's serotonin made? I don't get it. So serotonin's made by eating protein. That protein has tryptophan in it. Tryptophan is an amino acid. Tryptophan goes to 5-HTP. 5-HTP goes to serotonin. So that's the conversion route. Again, one of the reasons why people feel so much better when they start eating meat opposed to plant-based diets is because they get all the amino acids and their body can actually make functional things, or the building blocks of amino acids, which is all in proteins. It's very, very difficult in a plant-based diet to get all of your amino acids in, which is why the medical community and society and the government are pushing plant-based so hard. Plus, with plant-based, just as a little caveat on that one, they can throw things like soy in. They can throw, things like seed oils in. It's vegetables, right? It's vegetable oil, right? And that causes dementia, Alzheimer's, arterial plaquing. It causes the soy in that causes estrogen dominance function, decreases testosterone levels, so your body can't heal right, and so you have less. So testosterone is also a major player in the depression game. So now all of a sudden you're more docile. You don't want to do anything. You just want to sit around. You're miserable all the time. So that's one of those things we get into. So there's a lot of stuff in the gut that is super duper important. Just getting back to stable base, where you kill the parasites, kill the yeast, restore the probiotics, heal the gut lining with collagen. And then I always try to teach people to talk people into meditation function so we can get that moving. Those are going to be some of the bigger players in the gut. Water is also a big player. Salt is a big player. So adrenals, and we'll talk about adrenals later, but the adrenals actually control fluid levels in the bowel. So some of your constipation issues are not necessarily just water, they're adrenal. And one of the most important things for your adrenals is salt. And what do they tell everybody not to consume? Salt. So sodium from processed foods, don't eat that type of stuff. But high quality crystalline salt, like a Celtic salt or like the pink salt we use here at the office, those are super critical function to your body. That sodium and that chlorine function are wildly important. So the gut does have a lot of stuff with it, and we work on gut all the time. One of the big things that's been created in the past 15 years or so has been celiac, IBS, and ulcerative colitis. The vast majority of these are from glyphosate. Glyphosate is a poison that they spray on, it's basically Roundup, they spray on wheat. Now, here's the reason they do it. So you have this whole wheat field, all right? So let's say 99% of it's dead, but there's a spot in the middle that's not, still green. When you harvest this, you put it all together, the moisture and all the stuff from that green wheat can rot a giant amount, if not all of the wheat they collect. So what they do is they spray glyphosate or Roundup over all of it, kills all of it, so they can, when they harvest it, it's already dead, and so it doesn't rot, and so it saves them some money. But glyphosate's wildly toxic. It's been banned in almost every other country, which is also why they won't take our wheat. So, for instance, my patients who have celiac, when they go to Europe, they eat the bread, they eat the pasta, and they feel fantastic. They're like, wow, I don't understand. Why? And they're like, well, it's because the hybridization. It's not really the hybridization. That plays a small role. It's the glyphosate, and we've known it forever. But because the pharmaceutical companies and the Monsanto, the company that owns glyphosate, they play together. And so they tell the government, don't ban this. So now what's happened is that we have food that's making you wildly sick. We have a pharmaceutical industry that is, making all sorts of different drugs now for ulcerative colitis, for colitis, for IBS, for celiac, for all these other things. And so now we know what the problem is. We know how to fix the problem so that we wouldn't have this anymore, so we could all eat wheat again. But because it's so profitable for both the food companies and for the pharmaceutical companies, they keep telling the government, no, leave it there. We need it there. And so that's one of the reasons that you guys are so sick, is because the food you're eating is intentionally poisoned. So that's one of the big issues. So that's why we tell people don't eat gluten. It's not because there's necessarily a problem with gluten as a protein or gluten as a chemical. That's fine. When you go to Europe, there's lots of places in the world that you can go where it's been banned for a long time and you can eat the bread as much as you want to. But here, you can't. It's toxic. It's not the gluten, it's the glyphosate that's on or mixed in with the gluten. So that's the big issue. That's why when people go gluten-free, usually not from wheat products, that's why you end up seeing them do just fine. So again, the real issue that we have going on, and the real reason we have to work so hard with the supplementation and we don't eat this, don't eat that, is because there's literally a war going on where the pharmaceutical companies, the chemical companies like Monsanto, and the government want to keep you as sick as possible so they can keep sucking dollars out of you in the medical system to make you feel better for right now instead of fixing the actual issue. But that's kind of where a lot of this is. So just understand the reason why it's so hard for you to get and stay healthy is because there's massive industries that are trying as hard as they can and lobbying the government as much as they can to keep you sick so that you have to pay them daily for multiple different things. That's really where it is. I don't know if your medical doctors know. A lot of them do. A lot of them do, and that's why functional medicine is becoming such a big deal. A lot of the medical doctors who are giving you things like semaglutide, who are giving you things like Ozempic, who are giving you things like diabetes medications, who are doing things for, telling you that, MS and dementia and Alzheimer's are not treatable. The reason they're telling you that is because they can sell you the drugs. Some of them don't know. Lots of them do. Lots of them who do know are coming to guys like me and they're like, will you help me out? Can I learn this stuff so I can start becoming functional medicine trained? I have a bunch of guys who are friends of mine who are functionally medicine trained and know how to do this stuff, but hospitals like Baylor will not let them do any of it because guess who gets part of the kickback on the pharmaceuticals? The hospitals, which is why they were willing to kill people when they had COVID instead of use the hyperbaric chambers to heal them. So, at a certain point, you have to look around all the hospitals and go, man, a lot of these hospitals had hyperbaric chambers. None of them chose to use them. They all put them on ventilators, even though we knew ventilators were the wrong path. Why would they do that? Well, the only thing we know is that they were getting paid $37,000 for everybody they put on a ventilator that died. And they would get paid about, $1,000 for everybody they put in a hyperbaric chamber and they saved. So at a certain point, you have to go, who made this decision? Because all the pulmonologists, all the respiratory therapists, all the cardiac specialists, all the vascular specialists had to have known that hyperbaric oxygen increases oxygenation to the tissues by 1,000%. They all have hyperbaric chambers in their hospitals that they use for this. So at the end of the day, you have to kind of ask, if they all knew and they didn't use them, who made that decision? So anyway, so we put people in hyperbaric chambers and use quinine from day one. We never lost anybody. People coming in here with pulse oxes in the high 70s, low 80s, incoherent. We'd give them a little shot of quinine, toss them in the chamber, and 10 minutes later they could breathe and they were fine. So, I mean, lots of other doctors knew about this, but nobody else was doing it. And you have to ask why. It's because the administration of the hospital didn't value the lives more than they valued the 37,000. So that's the machine we're working against. So when you wonder, why is it so hard to get healthy? Why is there so much misinformation? How come I'm not getting healthier by going to my medical doctor and getting these drugs? You know, that's the reason why. The Western medicine, not the medical doctor necessarily, but the Western medicine itself is geared to not get you better, but to keep you paying for daily drugs. And then when you have a secondary problem, oh, that's cool, because that's one more drug you have to buy. And then it's one more drug, and that's the surgeries, and it's the blood work, and it's all this secondary stuff. So that's the game. It's not get you healthy and keep you healthy. It's, you know, how much money can we suck out of you for your health? So that's kind of how a lot of that goes. We'll get into some of that more. You guys throw out your questions at chalmerswellness.com. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks for your time.